I'm Jennifer Della Quadri, and this is the Raising Happy Teens podcast, where you learn how to successfully guide your teenager into adulthood without losing your sanity in the process. Let's do this. Welcome back to the podcast. You may notice in the upcoming weeks that I am talking a lot more to general things that we as women can do to feel better and more aligned in our lives, and less about specifically how to help your teenager with specific things or challenges that they're facing. And the reason for that is because one thing I know for sure, and the hundreds of people that I've worked with and in my own life, is when you feel better as a person, that translates into your relationship with your teenager. It translates into that, and it translates into every area of your life. So the end result of the things that I'm talking about, one of the amazing results is that it's going to impact your teenager's level of confidence, your level of confidence, and your relationship with your teen. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. When you really focus on the things that I'm talking about in these episodes, and this one specifically, you are going to feel better in your life. And to me, there's nothing more important than that. Everything shifts when you feel better in your life. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about one thing that I know comes up for all of the moms I work with, for myself included, pretty much every woman who is a mom in their life that comes up for them, and that is mom guilt. So let's dive in. So, when you're scrolling on social media and you see a picture of someone, a friend or something like that with their kids, and everybody's just looking happy. Maybe their kid achieved something amazing, or maybe they're on vacation somewhere like Hawaii or whatever. Maybe they just look like they're all having so much fun together. And you get this like sinking feeling in your stomach. Or let's say you've missed some important moment in your kid's life. Maybe it was a performance, a game, an event. There it is, that sinking feeling. Or maybe it's a burning in your chest. Or maybe you've been busy with work or on a passion project. Or maybe you just haven't had the energy to be fully present with your team. That feeling you have, we all know it. We've all felt it. And at the root of it is mom guilt. So let me share a little bit of my story with it. For me, mom guilt shows up as like a burning feeling in my chest. And it feels for me a lot like anxiety. And I felt it for years, especially when my kids were younger, when I would leave early for work before they woke up. Or maybe they were awake and they told me they didn't want me to leave. I would feel so guilty for not being there. And even when I was there, I still felt guilty. Like I wasn't doing enough. I wasn't playing with them enough. I wasn't involving them in enough extracurricular activities. I wasn't volunteering in their classroom enough. Mom guilt would wake me up in the middle of the night, and I would just lay there and ruminate on all of the things that I wasn't doing, saying, the things I wasn't providing, and being for them. And I had no idea at the time what this feeling was. I just kind of accepted it. Like, this is how things are going to be for me from now on. Oh, well, this sucks, but I guess this is motherhood. And maybe you're nodding your head. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you're in the middle of experiencing this mom guilt right now. All of my clients experience mom guilt on some level, some more than others. And I started out this episode by labeling it as a feeling because that's really often where we notice it first. Something feels tense or just off in your body. And sometimes it can be really difficult to just identify or even pinpoint what's going on. You just know that you don't feel right. You feel bad. And noticing that something feels off is really the first step in managing it. Just starting by labeling the emotion. And I have a tool that I use that is so helpful for this process. I put a link to what is called a feelings wheel in the show notes. Go check it out, look at it, because it really helps you pinpoint the emotion you're feeling. It can be so easy to just say, I feel sad, or I feel angry, or I feel happy. Those are all emotions, but there's a deeper level of emotion that you can identify that really helps you get clear on what's going on. So if you look at the wheel, you'll see there's a root feeling for all of these. And on this particular wheel that I'm sharing, there are 7. And then from there, you can break it down a little bit further into specific things you're having, feelings you're having. So, for example, using my emotion of anxious, that is just where I always go, anxiety. The root of anxiety is fear. Then as you move out in specific, specificity, I got it. There is overwhelm and worry. They're both perfect description of how I was feeling when I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was feeling overwhelmed because I didn't know how I was going to be all that I thought I should be as a mom. And I was worried that I was missing out on important events, parts of my girl's life, and that I wasn't doing enough or doing a good job as a mom. And since mom guilt is the topic of this episode, let's talk a little bit about guilt. The root of guilt is sadness. And the emotions stemming from guilt are shame and remorse. Shame, one of the heaviest emotions around. Brene Brown says shame is that warm feeling that washes over us, making us feel small, flawed, and never good enough. Talk about heavy. She also says if you put shame in a petri dish, it needs 3 ingredients to grow exponentially: secrecy, silence, and judgment. Which is interesting because judgment is really at the heart of shame and guilt. It's also at the heart of overwhelm and worry. And I'm talking specifically about self-judgment, not judgment of others. And that's really the heart of it all. It's self-judgment. It's not that people all around you are saying, gosh, you should have showed up. I mean, yes, maybe they are, and that certainly doesn't help. But the world is not telling you that you suck. You're telling yourself that you suck. That's the judgment I'm talking about. That's one of the hardest things to overcome because you can tell so-and-so down the street, hey, leave me alone. I don't care what you think about me. I'm doing my best. But for some reason, it's so hard to tell yourself that because you just don't listen. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience. The reason you're carrying mom guilt is because you're judging yourself negatively. We all do it. It's totally normal. But when the judgment takes over and it's running the show, it can really impact your quality of life. And one thing I know for sure is that if you're not feeling good about yourself, it's harder to live in alignment with your values. It's harder to stay calm when your teen rolls their eyes at you. It's harder to connect with your partner, your friends, your family, and of course, hard to connect with yourself. So how can you turn all of this around? How can you really start to feel better and just stop letting that guilt take over? That is the question here. And lucky, I have some answers for you because I've experienced this myself and this is what has worked for me. So I know that if you apply it, it can work for you too. There's 4 steps. Step 1 is just that awareness. Noticing that the guilt is there. Label the emotion. Notice where you feel it in your body. Give it a name if you'd like. That helps separate it from you, just like your gremlin that I talked about in last week's episode. Name it. Separate it from you. That guilt, that judgment is not you. It's just that inner voice that you have been practicing and rehearsing in your head so many times that it feels like it's you. So step 1, awareness, noticing. Guess what? You're already there. Step 2, And you may be sitting here being like, okay, let me make a list of all the things I need to do. Okay, step one. Okay, what do I need to do? Because as moms, we're always just do, do, do. I need to check the boxes. But step two is to have compassion for that feeling. Self-compassion. Guilt and shame come from that judgment. So stop the judgment and start to show a little more love for yourself. Ask yourself, what is this feeling here to tell me? And what am I really needing right now? And avoid jumping into what it's here to tell me is that I'm not doing enough. That's just not true. It's just not true. So tell that little voice to be like, hey, go sit down. You need a timeout. Because what I'm doing here is I'm having some compassion for myself because I'm having some really heavy feelings. It's a lot for me. And I need a little love for myself. And really, what that feeling is there to tell you is that something feels off. Something isn't right. And have some compassion for that self that comes up. And then ask yourself what you're really needing right now. The answer to that is probably pretty clear, not always easy to honor. And that's where step 3 comes in, to honor your needs. As moms, we're the first to say yes. We're constantly striving to do it all. I talked about this in my mom burnout episode. It's draining and it's really impossible to do it all. In fact, you're going to be more effective in your life if you're purposely not trying to do it all. In fact, do the opposite. Decide what's really important and ditch the rest. And that's, I know, hard to do, but that's what really step 3 is about, is honing in on what you need, on your needs, and being really intentional about bringing more of that into your life. And this is something I've done recently, intentionally paring down my schedule to make as much open space as possible. And that's hard. It's scary and it's hard. By space, I mean space with nothing planned, nothing to do. And I purposely make this time when I'm not cleaning, I'm not watching TV, I'm not scrolling my phone, I'm not even exercising. It's space to be bored. Being bored feels uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to it. But boredom creates space to breathe. So if you're able to sit through that uncomfortable, it gives you space to think about what it is you really want to do. Like, I have this time. What do I want to fill it with? What do I enjoy doing? And eventually, this is the best part, that boredom turns into contentment. The root of contentment is happiness. And the emotions tied to it are joyful and free. What better emotions are there to have? I mean, tell me. Joyful and free. I was in a therapy appointment recently and I was telling my therapist, like, I just want to feel content. I don't remember the last time I felt content. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that feels like because I don't access it. When I started intentionally making space in my life for things that fill me up, I'd been searching forever. Like, what is it that I can do that I can just enjoy for the fun of it? And it wasn't until I intentionally started paring things down, creating space to allow, until I found something. And actually, the contentment did come. And it didn't take that long, to be honest with you. So, like I said, when I first started creating this space, my anxiety picked up, like nervous. I should be doing something. I need to be doing something. This is not productive. And then I felt kind of sad. Like, what the heck do I even want to do? Who am I? It's like an existential crisis going on. But I resisted the urge to distract myself, doing things like power cleaning, doom scrolling. I resisted it. And soon enough, I just felt inspired to try something new. And some of the things I tried are Zen Tangle. If you've never tried it or heard of it, I highly recommend checking it out. It's just basically drawing patterns and like cool designs, not necessarily pictures. So you don't have to be a major artist, which I'm not. So it was perfect for me. I got some of those puzzle books and did those, those little, they have like crossword puzzles and like number puzzles. And, they're just, I don't know, my mom did them forever when I was growing up. And now I'm like, oh, I'm my mom. Huh. Anyway, I did some of those, which was fun. I did puzzles. I did Legos, all those things. And I mentioned this in an earlier episode, but then I found crochet. And I feel 100% content when I'm doing these things. I'm in the present moment. I'm not worrying about what's to come. I'm not worrying about what's happened. I just feel free. I feel spacious and I can feel joy. Joyful to me feels a lot like contentment. But you know what I didn't feel is guilty because I'm doing something that makes me feel good inside. And so I want you to ask yourself, what makes you feel good inside? When do you feel content? When do you feel joyful and free? And if you have an answer, do more of that thing. If you don't, try the forced boredom method. I'm going to TM that, forced boredom. See where it takes you. And you might be thinking, I don't have time for boredom. I get it, okay? I get it. Life is busy. There's lots of things to do, and you're a really important person. But that's why it's so important for you to really get clear on what is important and start cutting out all the bullshit that doesn't matter. The things that you do from people pleasing, the things that you do to compensate for your feelings of insufficiency. This is boundary setting. And that's the final step. Learn how to create and honor boundaries to protect your energy. I've done a podcast episode on boundary setting. I'll put a link in the show notes. You only have this one precious life. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to spend all of your time worrying, feeling guilty, and doing things that aren't really important to you? Or are you going to fill your cup first? Find the things that light you up and really honor your needs and allow the joy you cultivate to permeate all aspects of your life. You get to decide. And if you'd like some support with this, I'm here for you. I help moms just like you manage feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety, and all of the above so that they can feel more joyful and content in their lives. Click the link in the show notes to schedule a free consultation with me to learn more. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you next time. If you liked this episode, I'd like to invite you to join Raising Happy Teens, my free online community for parents of teenagers, where every week I host Ask a Coach. You bring your parenting questions, and I provide expert advice and coaching. Click the link in the show notes to join today. I'll see you inside.